It all began in a quiet laboratory in Cambridge, where curious scientists studied chimpanzees. But these were no ordinary chimps. They had been infected with something terrible, something that burned through their bodies like fire and filled them with uncontrollable rage. When a group of well-meaning but reckless animal rights activists broke into the lab, they freed one of the chimps, ignoring the desperate warnings of a scientist. And in mere seconds, chaos erupted. The virus spread like wildfire, turning people into frenzied, bloodthirsty monsters. In just a few short days, all of Britain fell into ruin. Cities were abandoned, families torn apart, and the world as people knew it was gone. Then, 28 days later, in a silent, empty hospital in London, a man named Jim awoke. He had been in a coma, unaware of everything that had happened. When he stepped outside, he found the streets abandoned, the once busy city now nothing but a ghost town. He wandered, lost and confused, until he stumbled into a church. But inside, there was no comfort, only horror. The bodies of the dead lay scattered, and the living, well, they weren't quite human anymore. Jim was almost caught by the infected, but just in time, two survivors, Selena and Mark, rescued him. They explained what had happened. A sickness had spread, turning people into violent, mindless creatures. There was no cure, no help coming, only survival. Jim wanted to see if his parents were still alive, so the three of them made their way to his home. But when they arrived, all they found was a heartbreaking note. His parents had taken their own lives, unable to face the nightmare outside. That night, as Jim sat grieving, the flicker of his candle caught the attention of something lurking in the darkness. The infected stormed into the house. Mark was bitten, and before Jim could even understand what was happening, Selena took her machete and cut him down. "You get infected, you die." No hesitation, she told Jim coldly. This was the world now. The next day, they spotted a signal from an apartment tower and found two more survivors, Frank, a kind-hearted cab driver, and his young daughter, Hannah. Frank had heard a radio message promising safety at a military blockade near Manchester. With their food running low, the four of them decided to take a chance and make the journey. The road was dangerous, but together they made it, battling infected, looting supplies, and even laughing for the first time in what felt like forever. But when they reached the blockade, all they found was silence and crows picking at the remains of the dead. Then, in a cruel twist of fate, a single drop of blood fell from above, right into Frank's eye. Jim and Selena could only watch in horror as the infection took hold of him in seconds. And just like that, Frank was gone. Before they could even react, soldiers appeared, shooting Frank and taking the others to their safe house. At first, it seemed like salvation. A fortress, food, and protection under the command of Major Henry West. But soon, the awful truth came out. The soldiers weren't saviors. They were monsters of a different kind. They had lured survivors here with false promises, but what they really wanted was something sinister. Jim refused to go along with it, and for that, West ordered him to be executed. But Jim, quick and clever, escaped into the wilderness. Alone and desperate, he saw something that gave him hope, a plane flying high in the sky. That meant the world wasn't entirely lost. Someone out there was still alive. Jim returned to the mansion, but this time, he had a plan. He set off an alarm to lure the soldiers away, then freed an infected man they had been keeping locked up. Within minutes, the infection spread through the mansion, turning the soldiers against each other. Chaos erupted. Meanwhile, Selena and Hannah fought for their lives. One of the soldiers tried to take Selena, but Jim arrived just in time, attacking with such fury that, for a moment, Selena thought he might have been infected too. But when she looked into his eyes, she saw not madness, but love. Together, the three of them ran, hoping to escape. But West wasn't finished yet. He shot Jim, wounding him. But Hannah, small and brave, tricked him, driving their cab in reverse. She let the infected take West instead. And so, they fled. Another 28 days passed. Jim, now healing from his wound, lived in a small cottage in the countryside with Selena and Hannah. The infected, once so powerful, were now weak, starving without people to hunt. And then, one day, the sound of an engine rumbled in the sky. A jet. Together, they rushed outside, unfurling a massive cloth with one simple word, "Hello." As the plane soared above them, Selena whispered, "Do you think he saw us this time?" And as Jim looked up, hope finally returning to his heart, he smiled. Maybe, just maybe, this nightmare was finally coming to an end.